I knew this was going to happen. I told you boys this was going to happen. And now here it is. It's happened. We got some people out there thinking that MX vs. ATV Legends is just too damn hard. It's too hard. You pop off the bike too much, you crash too much, the game's too hard. Well, you might be wondering to yourself, Spence, where are you getting this from? Where are you reading this from? And who gives a shit about one little comment? Well, the interesting thing about that is somebody tweeted this kind of thing, like the game's too hard, da-di-da-di-da, and MX vs. ATV actually liked the tweet. They liked the tweet. Okay? So, I'm not even going to read the name of the person that left the tweet, because who gives a shit about that, right? But he says, and I quote, this is his tweet, okay? He @s MX vs. ATV, hey, period. I love the game, but I wreck more in this game than any other motocross game. Can we make the rider stay on the bike a little more, question mark? A tiny little case landing, sideways landing, or fall from up high causes me to wreck off the bike. Please and thank you, period. And this was a tweet that was liked by MX vs. ATV Legends. That's probably how I even saw it in the first place, right? It recommended it to me or whatever on Twitter. I saw this shit and I said, God dang it. Here we go. And I told you boys this was going to happen. Right after we had that first update, I told MX vs. ATV, I said, whatever you do, don't mess with the pop-off system. Don't make the game any easier, Don't make it, easier to land and all those kind of things. Luckily, MX vs. ATV hasn't seemed to have done that, okay? The whole point of this video right here is I don't want them to do that because typically, I wouldn't have gave a shit about this kind of a tweet because, everybody's going to have a different opinion. You're going to have you may have a kid that's 5, 6, 7 years old tweeting on Twitter, fucking, you know what I'm saying, and thinks MX vs. ATV Legends is too hard. I mean, there's all different possibilities here, right? So, but my deal with it is the fact that MX vs. ATV actually liked that tweet almost like they're going to do something about that. You know what I'm saying? Make the rider stay on the bike more, not wreck as much, make the game easier. I don't see any other reason why they would have liked that tweet if they weren't thinking about doing that. And all I'm going to say right now, MX vs. ATV, that is the biggest possible mistake you could ever make with MX vs. ATV Legends, okay? We finally made it to a point where we've got a little bit of skill gap. In an arcade dirt bike game, I swear to God, it's been like a decade, bro. It literally feels like it's been since we've had any real skill gap, inertia to the bike. Supercross 5, you can't even pop off of the bike. No matter how far you overjump, underjump, 90% of the Milestone games are that way. They're just easier. You don't crash as much. You don't pop off the bike as much. The bike is not going to react as much over roughness or whoops or doing anything. You know what I'm saying? So, certainly when you compare it to Reflex, Alive, back in those days, even Unleashed and Untamed had a pretty substantial pop-off system. You couldn't just go hit a fucking 420-foot dune jump to flat and expect to land that shit. But you can do that on 90% of the Milestone games. And once MX vs. ATV started to get to MX vs. ATV Supercross and Encore and into All Out, I feel like none of those games really had the pop-off system and the inherent difficulty of motocross games before then. And I think that's where a lot of these boys that tweet stuff like this dude did, saying that the game, he wrecks more in this game than any other motocross game. You know, he wants the game to be easier. I genuinely think where all that shit comes from is it's been a decade plus since we've had a skill-gapped arcade motocross game. So when you go that long without it, a lot of these guys, I think they've just gotten used to these Milestone games. They've gotten used to the difficulty level of them, the arcadiness of them, the easiness of them. Yeah, Supercross 3 had a little bit of skill gap, but let's not sit here and act like these Milestone games are some next level skill gapped arcade dirt bike games that are actually tricky and shit like that. Like, they're just not. They're just not. Especially when you consider all of them as a whole. What I think it's done is it's warped the minds of some of you motherfuckers out there. Spency boy just speaking from the heart right now. I think it's literally warped some of your minds into, now when you go in there and you play a game like MX vs. ATV Legends, it actually has some skill gap. You can pop off the bike. They've started to update some stuff with the game where they've made it to where it doesn't have all the bugs with the gearbox, so you're going faster now than you were whenever Legends first came out. You know, I'm talking about Legends after these first 2 or 3 updates here. She's got some skill gap, dog. She's got some you know, depth to the actual gameplay. You're not going to hop right into Legends right now if you've never played the game and be just absolutely mobbing around these tracks in like 2 or 3 hours. It's going to take you like a couple of days at least to really get the hang of the clutch boosting and the way the seat bounce is not really like a button like it used to be back in the old school days, or like it was in All Out, but you've got this sort of up and down spring motion you can do in the air to get the bike to sort of almost like whip glitchy, but you're not whipping type vibe, to the clutch boost, to the momentum system of the game and the setting up the bike. You know, I feel like there's enough levels and layers here, combined with the way the tracks are made, where the motocross tracks, some of them have some massive jumps on them where if you don't hit them puppies pretty clean, you're going to be racking your sack, you're going to be popping off that bike, you're going to be screaming to your mama, okay? Right? So we've got Supercross tracks where if you come up short on the quads, you can pop off the bike. And there's some of these Supercross tracks where it's, some of these triple in rhythms can be so tricky, even when you're clutch boosting. There's like ways to try to go up the insides of these corners and still try to hit the bigger jumps. There's just all different levels and layers combined with the scrub system of the game. Now you're playing a whole nother game where now you're trying to carry that momentum. You're trying to scrub low to the ground. You're doing like 5, 6 different mechanics at once when you're on these Supercross tracks, that I really feel like Legends is one of the more skill-gapped arcade dirt bike games that we've had since the old school days of, like, you know, Reflex, Alive, you know, Unleashed, Untamed, all that kind of shit. I feel like Legends really is more down that sort of road of skill gap. It's like you can't just get around these tracks blind. You know, you've got to actually use the mechanics of the game. You've got to figure out when to clutch boost, how to lean the bike, how to scrub the bike without popping off on the jump face. And the fact that this game, you know, that sounds like what you would think of one of the Milestone games. Like, oh, you can scrub really low to the ground in the first Supercross game and try to carry momentum and all these things. But it's just not the same. Legends has more of a actual momentum, like more of a realistic momentum shifting, moving, landing, leaning, seat bouncing, steering. I mean, it really does, especially like I'm saying after these updates, it really does seem to have got itself to a point here where it keeps me fully engaged. When I'm playing MX vs. ATV Legends, I'm fully engaged in the gameplay, okay? My whole point is with this video, MX vs. ATV, if you make the game any easier, I'm not going to be as interested in playing it and as invested in it and, want to come back to it. But that's why I want to play the game right now. That's why I'm still making content on the game right now, because it's skill gapped, because you can't just, blindly go into it and hit every jump wide open and not worry about anything and not really worry about leaning, and the game's going to basically play itself for you. 90% of the Milestone games, MX vs. ATV, Supercross, and even All Out to an extent has a lot of very arcadey elements to it. I feel like you can overjump shit way further on All Out than you can on Legends without popping off. You know what I'm saying? Plus, I feel like the whoops are more challenging on Legends after these updates. If you really start, like I'm saying, now that they've cleaned up that gearbox bug, you're able to go so much faster, it feels like, on these tracks than you could before. So now you're hitting the whoops harder. You're fucking hitting these deformed ruts harder than you were before. There's like some different stuff going on that I feel like the game really has got itself to a cool difficulty level, And I think that's just been a problem with modern gaming that we've had to deal with for like I'm saying, like the past decade. It really feels to me like these higher up dudes in these development teams for these games, it's like they look at it more like, let's make the game more for everybody, right? 5-year-old, Timmy Two Shoes, 90-year-old grandma, 69-year-old Jimmy. I mean, everybody, right? It's like they're trying to make all video games easy enough for everybody to play and everybody to access, and it's kind of gotten away from making the difficulty of the game for gamers. You know what I'm saying? Gamers. Like, it seems as if a lot of games make it more for grandma and 5-year-old than they do for adequate, gamer that knows what they're doing with the controller. You know what I'm saying? So, but I feel like Legends it's got the difficulty of the game that feels more like, okay, you might actually have to have, some hours into specifically motocross video games before you can really figure out what you're doing in Legends. It's not just a instant learn the whole game, you're wicked fast instantly. Like, if you've never played a motocross game ever before, I can promise you're going to get your ass Too Fast, Too Furious, Paul Walker jump overed on every fucking jump on the track. Whereas, like, when you go to some of the Milestone games, I literally feel like, and I'm not kidding when I say it, that a 7-year-old, 6-year-old kid could absolutely mob James Stewart level speed on the first Supercross game that's never played a motocross game in their life. Like, seriously, the lack thereof of inertia and crashing mechanics and all those things that a lot of those Milestone games had. Obviously, they got better with it when they went to Supercross 2 and then got even better with it when it went to Supercross 3. Now they've started going backwards again. Like I'm saying, you can't even really pop off the bike on Supercross 5 when you overjump shit. So it's like Milestone figured it out a little bit at one point, but then they've kind of lost it again as far as making it difficult enough. Even in an arcade dirt bike game, if you come up short on a 69-foot Supercross triple, you probably need to pop off of the bike, 8 out of 10 times. Yeah, there may be the times where you don't case it quite as bad and you might be able to save it, but you still need to lose a lot of momentum. But at the same time, I cannot stand those dirt bike games where, you jump some massive triple, Supercross triple, or you're hitting some massive Supercross quad, and then you just land and the bike does nothing. You barely even lose momentum. Supercross 1. You know what I'm saying? That just kills the entire feeling of Supercross for me. If you can't really pop off the bike anywhere, and like if you go over jump, Larocco's leap by 50 foot and you don't pop off the bike, or you over jump some freestyle thing by by 50 foot and you don't pop off the bike, that's a problem for me. That takes away the entire gameplay for me. If you make it so easy to where I can't pop off anywhere, I don't pop off that much, or, the game basically just plays itself for you, well, then you're going to lose all of your fan base that wants to actually be challenged. You're going to lose all your diehard motocross gaming fans that are going to stay in this shit and rep your shit and make content on your game, MX vs. ATV. Who do you want to please more? The few, Timmy boys that are younger can't, for some reason, think MX vs. ATV Legends. They think it's way too hard. They think it's just too hard of a dirt bike game for some reason. They must have obviously never played any simulator. That's all I got to say. Because Legends is nothing like that. I don't even feel like Legends is as skill-gapped as Reflex. I feel like Legends is somewhere comparable to like Alive's skill gap, you know what I'm saying? It's somewhere around there. It might even be a little bit more than Alive, but I definitely don't even think it's Reflex level skill gap. So it's not like we're really talking about some crazy level of skill gap with Legends. I still don't feel like they went overboard with the difficulty of the game for an arcade dirt bike game. I just think the culture around easier gaming in the past decade of arcade dirt bike games has sort of warped people's idea and opinion on what is too difficult and what isn't. And I feel like that's what Milestone did with a lot of their dirt bike games. I mean, you totally take out a pop-off system on a fucking motocross, supercross game. You're just going to take out a pop-off system? You cannot pop off the bike? What? Bro, that's like a cardinal sin of dirt bike gaming. You know what I mean? That's like a pop-off system is what makes a dirt bike game what it is. Of course, the simulators have way more extreme of a pop-off system. You got to be way more precise when you're jumping. You've got all the, the simulated gearboxes and the fucking shifting and the advanced stability. You got all these other levels and layers to the simulators. Trust me, MX vs. ATV Legends is not a simulator at all. It is not. It's just trying to be a cool, more difficult arcade dirt bike game. Please do not lose that, MX vs. ATV. Please do not strip that away from this game. It's what's making it fun. It's what's making it replayable. If these dudes keep popping off and they keep crashing, maybe they need to play the game more. How about that? Maybe they need to get a little better. Now, if it's a bug, if it's some kind of bug to the game that's causing you to crash when you shouldn't, I'm okay with them fixing bugs, but the game does not need to be any easier. Period. Period, bro. I'm telling you right now, I almost think it could even use a little bit more difficulty, specifically when it comes to the roughness and the whoops and just like, I think it could be even a little more difficult. So, but I wasn't even going to make a big spiel about that. If anything, though, they don't need to go the other direction with it. They don't need to go easier with it. We've had easy dirt bike games. If MX vs. ATV Legends is too hard for you, go play All Out. That's basically what it is. It's an easier MX vs. ATV Legends with like smaller jumps, easier to process rhythms and things like that. Legends is kind of on another level because it doesn't have an actual seat bounce button. You got to actually kind of learn the physics more. But like, and if you think All Out and Legends is too difficult, you have all of those Milestone games. You have MX vs. ATV Supercross. You got easier dirt bike games. I think it's time we've had a little bit more difficult of an arcade dirt bike game where you can pop off and flip over in the whoops and the bike may react kind of violently. And, if you're super used to these easier dirt bike games, you may not be used to that. It may seem like, oh shit, this is brutal, bro. This Supercross track is brutal, bro. How am I going to even get around it, bro? Yeah, that's what Supercross is supposed to feel like, bro. It's supposed to feel like, damn, how do I hit that triple in? And then you do another 69, 420 laps and you finally get where you can hit that triple in. You know, it takes learning the game, playing the game, the content of the game, figuring out the game, the big jumps. They didn't go super easy with the track designs. They actually made some bigger jump rhythms and some bigger jump motocross tracks. They did that shit. So the game actually has some replayability, and you can separate yourself from a day one ass beginner player, which makes it fun, makes you want to come back and play it. When the game's more difficult, it's like you got to come back and knock the rust off. You want to get back in and try the new tracks because, oh shit, MX vs. ATV is still updating their game, and they're still doing what they're supposed to do by sticking with their game for multiple years. Let's try to make this shit better, you know what I'm saying? But do not go backwards, MX vs. ATV. Whatever you do, I'm okay with you keeping the difficulty where it is. I think it should be more, but whatever you do, do not go backwards. Do not make this game any easier than it currently is. There is absolutely no reason. No reason, bro.